I would have said welcome back to India, but I don't think these are the circumstances under which you would have wanted to come back to India.
Thank you very much for having me here. And I always believe that Janani Janmabhoomi Sarvatapi Gardeshe. So my birthplace is always the most beautiful place in the world.
Let's talk a little bit about the unsavory incidents over the past week or so. Can you just take us through the timeline of how it happened? On October 13th, I think, is when you were told by the Canadians. Just talk us through what exactly happened.
So I was on a visit to Toronto. I was sitting at the airport. I received a message from my interlocutor in the Global Affairs Canada, which is the Foreign Ministry in Canada, to come to the Foreign Ministry. In the evening, unfortunately, I was not available because I was flying back on the 12th. And then on the 13th, they agreed to receive me in the morning. So I and my Deputy High Commissioner. So we went together, and after a bit of conversation, then they told me that I, along with 5 other Indian diplomats and officials, are persons of interest in the inquiry of killing of Nijjar. And therefore, there was a request to waive off my diplomatic immunity as well as diplomatic immunity of my colleagues so that we could be interrogated by RCMP, which is the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, the investigating agency there. So I took that as a message. We diplomats are messengers in any case. So we sent that message back home for advising us what to do.
But for Indians, it is unbelievable. It's like I'm in disbelief and in shock that an ambassador, a high commissioner, ambassador, is being told that he is going to be interrogated by the national police of a country. How does that happen?
It doesn't happen in diplomacy. And generally speaking, there will be some kind of messaging to start with. I didn't get that either. And all of a sudden, this was handed over to us. So I would say this demonstrates the distrust. This demonstrates kind of a backstabbing that was done to us by our very professional colleagues in Canada.
And a country that we consider our friends.
Absolutely, because both are democracies, both are countries of rule of law. We have a huge diasporic interest in Canada. We are good trading partners, investment partners, etc. So we had been doing well in the overall canvas of our bilateral relations, and this came to me as a shock. And rest, you know what happened.
Yeah. Did you? How did you take it? Did you take it with equanimity? Were you expecting it in the first place, or did it come as a complete surprise?
No, I was not expecting it. Generally, such summons I have faced earlier as well in Canada. But in such summons, what happens is that they give you a message to be conveyed back home, and it won't be something of the kind that you yourself are a person of interest in an investigation. So, yes, inside it hit me a bit, but externally, as a representative of 1.4 billion people, I was absolutely calm.
अपने शक्ल पे कुछ नहीं दिखाया आपने?
शक्ल पे बिल्कुल कुछ नहीं, कोई शिकन भी नहीं. तो उन्हें भी ऐसा लगा कि पता नहीं ये कौन सा इंसान है जो इस तरह से व्यवहार कर रहा है. लेकिन मुझे खुशी ये हुई कि मैंने उन लोगों को कोई भी ये खुशी नहीं दी कि ये उदास है.
जी. और या डर गया हूँ मैं.
या मैं डर गया हूँ.
और आपको सिर्फ 4-5 दिन दिए गए थे कि आप छोड़ के चले जाइए कनाडा.
तो मुझे जो हमारी डेडलाइन थी वो थी 19 अक्टूबर कनाडा का टाइम, ऑटवा का टाइम. कनाडा में बहुत सारे टाइम्स है. तो ऑटवा के टाइम से 11:59 रात्रि अक्टूबर 19.
और अगर आप ना जाते तो शायद आप अरेस्ट भी हो सकते थे.
अगर मैं नहीं जाता तो मेरी डिप्लोमेटिक इम्यूनिटी ख़त्म हो जाती और मैं उनका जो इन्वेस्टिगेटिव प्रोसेस है उसमें मुझको जबरन शामिल किया जाता।
आपने 36 साल के अपने डिप्लोमेटिक करियर में आप जापान के एम्बेसडर रहे हैं, सूडान के एम्बेसडर रहे हैं, कौंसल जनरल रहे हैं कई जगह पे, अब कनाडा के एम्बेसडर, हाई कमिश्नर, आपने बहुत सारे अप्स एंड डाउन्स देखे होंगे. Do you think this is, where would you rank this? Is it like the worst experience you have ever had?
This is the pits, and this is the most unprofessional approach to a bilateral relation. If they really believe that it is a large relationship for them as well, there are other diplomatic tools available in the hands of a diplomat, and those tools could have been used in order to see things falling in place as they had wished.
Can you just tell us a little bit about the genesis of the Khalistan problem in Canada, basically? How did Canada become a hotbed of this movement?
See, Canada had been a place where migration from India took place from early 20th century, so 1900s, early 1900s. And in fact, first when the first ship arrived there, a Japanese ship which had Indians. At that time, we were still a colony of Britain. So when they arrived, the Canadians did not allow them to berth. And many Indians on that ship perished without food. So a lot of atrocities are there in the history on people of Indian origin. And after a lot of persuasion, but also due to fear of a backlash globally, the ship was allowed to dock in Vancouver. Then they got down. So that was the first larger wave of our brothers and sisters going from here to Canada. A number of them were in the Sikh community. They were absolutely patriotic Indians. They kept the Indian flag flying high. They could not get their voting rights till 1940s. Though they were staying in Canada, they were citizens of Canada, but they didn't have the voting rights. They fought for it, they got the voting rights. Then moving forward, many of pro-Khalistan elements, including extremists and terrorists, they found refuge in Canada. And now I'm talking about 1980s. So they found refuge in Canada due to lenient Canadian legal system. They were able to get their permanent residence in Canada, citizenship in Canada. They sought asylum in Canada on fictitious grounds. And all of them then settled down there. Then they started doing something which was completely against a good India-Canada bilateral relation, from their perspective, Canada-India bilateral relations. And the first such example that we see was bombing of Air India flight Kanishka. When that happened, and we had been tracking some of these conversations which were going on, and the Canadian RCMP, which is federal police as well as investigating agency, they were kept fed that, look, these are the conversation and threats that we are picking, and there is a possibility that they will harm Air India flight. But it was not taken so seriously, and that resulted into unnecessary loss of so many lives. 329 on the aircraft. Then there was another bomb which exploded in Narita, Japan, which killed handlers. So many people lost their lives. It took a long time for them to reach a stage where judicial pronouncement could be given out. It took more than 15 years for the first one. And there it was all pro-Khalistan extremists and terrorists.
It's very ironical that the Khalistan movement in India has completely died down. It is sort of flourishing in distant shores, including in Canada. Canada has the largest number of Sikh population outside India. what percentage of that population would you say supports Khalistan?
See, if I look at today, I will not go into the historical projection. So if I look today, I would say that about 10,000 of people in the Sikh community in Canada would be hardline Khalistanis.
Only 10,000?
Only 10,000. So it's just a handful. But they have made Khalistan into a business. In the name of Khalistan, they do human trafficking, they do drug trafficking, they do gun running. So they earn a lot of money through that. Then a lot of money would be collected in the Gurudwaras, place of reverence and religious worship. And then they would use a part of that money into all nefarious jobs. So what then they do is, since that is the business for them, then these 10,000 intimidate others to join in. So for an example, someone will say that, I know where your daughter goes for education, studies. So people get intimidated. So I would say if you take those who are intimidated and those who are hardliner Khalistani extremists based out of Canada, I would put the figure at about 100,000, 1 lakh.
Okay. That's a very small number compared to the overall population.
But they have a huge, they shout aloud. And therefore, the babies are fed who shouts aloud. So therefore they are fed. And they have political influence, they have been
fed by the Canadian authorities, by the Canadian government, Canadian political system.
Canadian system overall. So if today I look at it, almost every Canadian law and order vertical has got in it the pro-Khalistan elements. So that infiltration, and it includes their defense forces. So that infiltration is there, due to which they have been able to get their way. If I look at the Canadian Parliament, there are a number of parliamentarians who are known to have voiced opinions on challenging the territorial integrity of India, sovereignty of India, on record. So as a fellow democracy, I would have thought that they will never talk of disintegration of India or further division of India. Territorial integrity is supreme.
So we'll have to go into the political system of Canada to understand why the administration does not crack down. I mean, to us, it is so logical that here is a group of people which wants to destroy India, to harm India, and they are living in a friendly country, but the friendly country is doing nothing to stop them. Why is it? Is it because the country is made up of a large number of immigrants from different areas? Do they become political constituencies which support the system?
Very much so. How I see Canadian foreign policy, and that's my analysis, I may be absolutely off the track, but it has got a lot of diasporic inputs. And these diaspora which are there in Canada, including diaspora from India, they are stakeholders in their foreign policy. Okay. And their inputs are taken as sacrosanct because they are voters as well. And in order to win elections, the political leaders do depend on them. So when you take inputs from a part of the diaspora, which in any case is anti-India, then what do you get? So your foreign policy becomes that much more colored from their views and opinions.
So the one that shouts the loudest gets the attention.
Gets the attention. And other members of the Indian community, other members of the Indian diaspora, they are there to earn a living. Yeah. They do not have a business as the Khalistanis have. Yeah. So they are there to earn their livelihood. They are there to live peacefully with others. So they are not the ones who would shout the loudest, But these Khalistanis do shout the loudest.
And that is why they get the support of the politicians.
Absolutely.
Okay, so this whole unsavory incident that has happened, is it irreversible or is there a possibility कि अगले साल जब अगर elections होते हैं कनाडा में तो things will become normal?
देखिए, ये जो होना था वो हो चुका है, और एक भारतीय होने के नाते, केवल हाई कमिश्नर के नाते नहीं, भारतीय होने के नाते मैं तो यही चाहूँगा कि दोनों देशों के बीच का संबंध बेहतर हो, लेकिन वो बेहतर हो इस कारण से नहीं कि हम बेहतर करना चाहते हैं, बल्कि इस कारण से कि दोनों एक दूसरे की इज्जत करते हैं, दोनों एक दूसरे के सिस्टम को समझना चाहते हैं, दोनों एक दूसरे के जो कोर कंसर्न्स हैं उसको समझे। और हमारा कोर कंसर्न बहुत क्लियर है, कई बार बताया जा चुका है हमारे कैनेडियन मित्रों को कि हमारा कोर कंसर्न है वहाँ से एंटी इंडिया एलिमेंट्स, जो ये खालिस्तानी एक्सट्रीमिस्ट्स और टेररिस्ट्स वहाँ पर हैं, जो चैलेंज करते रहते हैं इंडिया की सॉवरेंटी, टेरिटोरियल इंटीग्रिटी को, उन्हें किसी ढंग से उन्हें हैंडल करना पड़ेगा। एक यूनाइटेड नेशंस का मेंबर होने के कारण भी जैसे ही हम संयुक्त राष्ट्र के सदस्य हो जाते हैं तो एक तरह से कन्वेंशन है, मानकर हम चलते हैं कि दूसरे देशों की टेरिटोरियल इंटीग्रिटी और सॉवरेंटी पे हम बुरी नज़र नहीं डालेंगे। तो अगर कोई बुरी नज़र डालता है, और ये जितने खालिस्तानी हैं वहाँ कनाडा में बैठे हुए सब कैनेडियन नागरिक हैं, वो भारतीय नागरिक नहीं हैं, तो भारत का भविष्य क्या होगा ये भारतीय तय करेंगे, ये विदेशी तय नहीं करेंगे। और वो विदेशी हैं, कनाडा में भारतीय मूल के जरूर हैं वो, लेकिन वो हमारे लिए विदेशी हैं। विदेशियों को हमारे इंटरनल अफेयर्स में इंटरफियर करने का कोई अधिकार न था, न है, न रहेगा।
और किसी का हक नहीं है कि उनको उकसाएं और उनको प्रोत्साहन दें कि भारत में कुछ भी आतंक फैलाएं।
बिल्कुल नहीं, वो तो बिल्कुल क्राइम है। और अगर इस तरह का क्राइम वो करते हैं, चाहे पैसा ट्रांसफ़र करके, चाहे किसी को उकसाकर, चाहे किसी को इनकरेज करके भारत में वायलेंस करने के लिए, तो फिर भारतीय लॉ जो है वो अपना काम करेगी फिर वहाँ पे।
भारत ने तो यहाँ तक कहा है कि जो कनाडा के प्रधानमंत्री हैं वो आतंकवाद को प्रोत्साहन दे रहे हैं, तो इस हाल में जो नॉर्मलाइजेशन की जो बात हो रही है वो कैसे हो सकती है? हमने कोई एविडेंस उनको दिया है कि आप इस तरह से प्रोत्साहन कर रहे हैं आतंकवाद का?
देखिए, प्रोत्साहन दोनों तरह से हो सकता है। एक एक्टिवली उनको कहा जाए कि तुम ऐसा करो, और दूसरा है कि तुम करते रहो, मैं चुप बैठूंगा। तो अगर जो क्रिमिनल्स हैं, जो टेररिस्ट हैं, जो एक्सट्रीमिस्ट हैं, उनके अगेंस्ट हम कोई एक्शन नहीं लेते हैं तो वह भी एक तरह का प्रोत्साहन ही है। तो वो प्रोत्साहन वहाँ पर काफ़ी देखा जाता है, चाहे वो डोमेस्टिक वोट बैंक के लिए हो या फिर कोई और राजनीतिक कारण के लिए हो। इस प्रोत्साहन के कारण वो एम्बोल्डन हुए हैं और वो लगातार भारत के जो इंटरेस्ट्स हैं उसको अटैक करते रहते हैं, उसको हार्म करने की कोशिश करते रहते हैं।
There's one singular aspect of what Ottawa accused India of. I think this was just before your departure when the RCMP gave a press conference. And they talked about that India has been using the Lawrence Bishnoi gang to conduct targeted attacks in Canada. What do you make of that? How much truth is there in that?
Canada has its own gangs. And Goldie Bra is the name that we gave to them. Lawrence Bishnoi is the name that we gave to them. Okay. So it is not that the Canada or the Canadian authorities woke up from their dreams and they said, here is a Lawrence Bishnoi and here is a Goldie Brar. It was the Indian agencies which told them about these two gangsters. Goldie Brar was living in Canada. He was, on our request, he was put on the wanted list. All of a sudden, he disappeared from the wanted list. What do I make out of it? Either he is arrested, then he is no more wanted. Even that is not known to us. And in Canada, Goldie Brar runs just one gang. There are multiple similar gangs in Canada which are not so transnational, but they are pan-Canada. Yeah. Not only by Indians, there are others as well. So, you know, when the turf war starts on drug trafficking or human trafficking, gun running, we have seen in various parts of the world that there are murders and killings.
Yeah, yeah. In your TV interview, Canadian TV interview, you also condemned the killing of Nijjar. Who do you think would have killed him? What was the motive?
Difficult for me to say because investigation is still on. They have arrested 4 persons for the crime. But you know, there are 2 aspects of it. One is that if a crime has been committed, and murder is a crime, it doesn't matter who dies. Nijjar was a terrorist to us. But then anything which is extrajudicial for any democracy, any rule of law country is wrong. So it was wrong for us as well. We always told them that we want to reach the bottom of the whole episode so that you are satisfied, we are satisfied. So I will not go into what my feelings are because this is a subject of investigation, and investigation should follow its course and come out with the truth. Truth which is judicially acceptable.
Acceptable, yeah.